Hey everyone, welcome to Story Room. If you're new, you're part of the family. We bring you stories of drama and mystery, with moments you won't see coming, so make sure you subscribe right now, because today's story starts now.
Today's story is about the day Lowe's Angels turned into a war zone. It was February 28th, 1997. It was Friday morning, North Hollywood Lowe's Angels. For most people, it was just another ordinary morning. People were going to work, businesses were opening, cars were moving through the streets. And inside a Bank of America on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, employees were beginning another normal day. Nobody inside that bank knew that two men were already watching the building. Their names were Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Mătăsăreanu. And they weren't planning an ordinary robbery. They had spent months preparing. These two men had met years earlier through their shared interest in bodybuilding and firearms. Over time, they became partners in a series of robberies. But this time, they wanted something much bigger. They believed the North Hollywood Bank would have hundreds of thousands of dollars available because it was payday. And they came prepared. They wore body armor. They carried powerful rifles. They had enormous amounts of ammunition. Their plan was simple. Get inside, take the money, get back to their car, and disappear. But there was one thing they couldn't control. Timing, 9:16 a.m. Phillips and Mătăsăreanu arrived at the bank. They had reportedly synchronized their watches because they expected the police to take several minutes to arrive after the alarm was triggered. They walked into the bank carrying their weapons. Customers and employees suddenly found themselves staring at two heavily armed men. The atmosphere changed instantly. This wasn't a normal bank robbery. The two men forced people down and began attacking the bank's security barriers in an attempt to reach the money. Outside, however, something was already happening. Someone had noticed the robbery. Police were being called. And soon, the plan began falling apart. The police arrive. Lapped officers began arriving outside the bank. They didn't know exactly what they were about to face. The officers were responding to a bank robbery. They weren't expecting two men wearing heavy body armor and carrying military-style rifles. When Phillips and Mătăsăreanu finally came out of the bank, the police opened fire, and the two robbers fired back. What happened next was so intense that it looked like something from a Hollywood movie. Except this wasn't a movie. It was happening in the middle of North Hollywood, and people were watching it happen. The first minutes, gunfire erupted across the street. Police officers took cover behind vehicles. Windows shattered. Cars were damaged. People ran for their lives. The robbers were protected by body armor, making it extremely difficult for ordinary handgun rounds to stop them. Most lapped officers responding that morning were armed primarily with handguns and shotguns. The two robbers had much heavier firepower. The situation had suddenly become completely different from an ordinary bank robbery. Police officers weren't just trying to arrest two suspects anymore. They were trying to survive, and the entire neighborhood had become a danger zone. The getaway. The original escape plan was already collapsing. The robber's vehicle was damaged, and police fire made movement extremely difficult. Mătăsăreanu tried to use the getaway vehicle, while Phillips continued exchanging gunfire with officers. Eventually, the two men separated. Phillips moved away from the bank on foot. Mătăsăreanu continued trying to escape. And now the gunfight was spreading through the surrounding neighborhood. Residents were hiding inside their homes. Businesses were locking their doors. Police were rushing toward the scene from different parts of Lowe's Angels. And above the streets, news helicopters were recording everything. Millions of people would eventually see the footage. Phillips continued moving through the streets while exchanging fire with police. Officers were taking cover wherever they could. The situation continued for minutes that felt like hours. Eventually, Phillips became trapped near a residential area. He was seriously wounded. His weapon became unusable, and he was unable to continue moving forward. Then came the moment that ended his part of the story. Phillips died at the scene. He was only 26 years old. But the gunfight wasn't over. Emil Mătăsăreanu was still alive. He had been badly wounded, but he continued trying to escape. Eventually, police stopped him several blocks from the bank. He attempted to get away in another vehicle, but he couldn't escape the officers surrounding him. After a final exchange of gunfire, Mătăsăreanu was incapacitated. Police called for medical assistance, but he had suffered severe injuries. He died before paramedics could take him to the hospital. He was 30 years old, and after nearly 44 minutes, the gunfire finally stopped. The aftermath: the streets of North Hollywood looked completely different. Vehicles were riddled with bullet holes. Buildings had been damaged. Windows were shattered. And the evidence left behind showed just how intense the confrontation had been. The two robbers had fired roughly 1,100 rounds, while police fired hundreds more. More than a dozen officers and civilians were injured, although remarkably, no police officer or civilian was killed during the shootout itself. The robbers had escaped with approximately $350,000 from the bank, but neither man would ever spend it. And the story didn't end when the shooting stopped. The North Hollywood shootout forced the lap to confront a serious problem. Their officers had been facing criminals with firepower far beyond what many patrol officers carried. During the chaos, some officers obtained rifles from a nearby gun store. In the years afterward, the LAPD made major changes to its equipment and preparedness for situations involving heavily armed suspects. The final question: think about that morning for a second. At around 9:16 a.m., North Hollywood was just another busy part of Los Angeles. 44 minutes later, it looked like a war zone. Two men had walked into a bank expecting to steal money and disappear. Instead, they created one of the most infamous armed confrontations in modern Los Angeles history. And perhaps the strangest part of the entire story is this: the whole thing happened in front of cameras. News helicopters were already above the streets, broadcasting the chaos as it unfolded. People across America watched the footage on television. They watched police officers take cover. They watched civilians run. They watched the streets fill with gunfire. And they watched a bank robbery turn into something nobody expected. A story that began with two men walking into a bank ended with the entire city asking the same question: how did an ordinary Friday morning become one of the most terrifying days in Los Angeles history? This was the North Hollywood shootout, February 28, 1997. And for the people who were there, it was a morning they would never forget.